Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we are doing some cut testing. We'll get to this knife in a second. I'm going to let you guys in on a little inside baseball. I'm sitting here with a stack of knives on the table beside me that all need to come through this cut testing. So I'm going to try to get through these videos as quickly as possible. Maybe y'all will enjoy that. Maybe you won't. This is the Spyderco Kapara. This is a replica of the Spyderco Kapara. I did a full review. I'll put a link up to that up in the corner if you want to go back and see the full review. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the specs. We'll do a few size comps, and then we're going to get over and start the cutting on this thing. So this knife was launched back in 2018. I don't see much of them out in the wild. You certainly can still buy these, the real deals. This knife is what I'm kind of calling the more gentlemanly version of a Spyderco PM2. We'll do some size comparisons. I'll put it next to the PM2, but it's essentially basically the same size and the same cutting length as a PM2, but a much more refined, gentlemanly style knife, a little less on the tactical, aggressive look. This was a pretty popular design. It's kind of unique. It has a red G10 backspacer. This is real carbon fiber. They are nicely contoured scales. Really good knife overall. This replica is one I got from OK Knives, and it actually is pretty good too. The action's good. You can see it has a little bit of a bounce. Y'all know I hate that. Before we get too deep into here, if you would already, if you're not already subscribed, it'd mean the world to me if you could go down below here, hit that subscribe notification bell, join our little band of renegades. If you would also, throw me a thumbs up before you forget about it. I know like everyone, I forget about that too when I watch other people's videos. That really helps me, helps the channel get found more by the algorithms. So let's take a quick look at the specs. I'm going to start with that. We'll bring them down the left side of the screen. You can see in the open position, this is a good full-size knife, 8¼ inches. The blade on this is fairly true to form. This one's about 3½ inches total length, but you got about 3.3 on the cutting edge there. Closed length matches up nicely, 4.65. The blade thickness on this replica, this is a much thicker blade. Not sure why that is, but this is 130 thousandths versus the 110 thousandths, which makes it a little slicier on the original version. Handle thickness roughly the same, little over ½ inch. You're now into hundredths of an inch, so it's pretty comparable. This satin finish blade, full flat grind, as many Spydercos are. Real carbon fiber scales. One of the things I noted in the original review of this is that this is probably the most polished of the carbon fiber scales I have ever seen come from Spyderco, at least from all the replicas. And I have had quite a few different replica models. Y'all know that the native 5 in carbon fiber is my favorite still, my daily carry. Really nice job. I mean, you can see they did a great job on this, but this is almost too polished. It's almost too smooth, too slick, and there's no jimping. That was the other big feature of this knife that was very unusual, is that one of the very few Spyderco knives with no jimping anywhere on it. Again, to me, that keeps it in the very, gentlemanly pocket knife, not tactical. This is probably not a knife that's going to scare anybody in your office. Let's finish up with the specs here. The original comes in S30V. We have no idea what this is. I did not resharpen this knife. This one comes in a little bit more at 3.75 ounces on the overall weight. Does have steel liners in here. They are milled out. You can see down there just a little bit. They could be milled more. It's really only those two pockets right in there that are milled out. The other side is not milled out at all. Of course, it does have the split in it, which is the lock bar that comes over and makes up the compression lock. So this one's a little heavier than the other, is the compression lock. Like I said, the real one comes in at around $264. I got this for $24.50, which makes it one heck of a good deal for that kind of money. Behind the edge, anywhere from 16 thousandths to 18 thousandths. That's pretty nice, pretty slicey, should be pretty sharp. Let's do some size comps real quick. As I mentioned, probably the most comparable knife I would compare it to is the PM2. This is the OK version of the PM2. Here's against the PM3. You can see this is basically the same size as the PM2. And that is why I think this probably is the most logical direct comparison, particularly this one, which is also in carbon fiber, which is, also contoured carbon fiber. You're going to have handles that are essentially the same size, blades that are essentially the same size. One of the things that you do get different is that you can see there's a consistent taper all the way down, which gives you a very thin tip out on the edge of that. This one stays pretty thick until you get out towards the tip. This is more of that. I'm going to guess it's a modified sheep's foot kind of blade, but a nice full belly nonetheless, which matches up nicely with the PM2's full belly. You actually get, you can see here, a little more cutting edge on the Kapara than you get with the PM2. So that's just an added bonus, I guess, if that's your cup of tea. So there's that for comparisons. Let's keep on with our size comps real quick. I always like to use the 𝗚𝗲𝗍𝗍𝗀𝗍 FG, still one of the best all-time knives. If you don't have one of these in your collection, you really should. This is a phenomenal knife. This could be your one and done kind of knife. It does so many things well. Of course, this is the D2 Ozark Trail. So many of us have seen the old best you can get for 10 bucks kind of knife. I'm going to do a couple more just because these are like I picked them myself. Haven't pulled these out in a while. You've got your 𝗏𝗏𝗏 Raccoon there, very popular EDC knife. You can see this is larger than both of these, and the Rosie, of course, down here. So this, again, more of a full-size kind of knife. I did not sharpen it before this test. I sharpened a bunch of these on my table, and I just couldn't get to this one. Plus, it comes pretty sharp out of the box. You know, most people will call that more than adequately sharp. I'm actually only going to rate this a 9 out of 10. Let's see if I can zoom in on this paper. The edge that it puts on this is good, but it's not like, I'll give you another example. We're going to test this one after this, not on this video, but on the next video, we're going to test the 𝗚𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Now, I reprofiled this down to a nice 18-degree edge, and this thing is like a laser through paper. When you cut one behind the other, I'm just getting really snobby, is really all I'm saying there. Most people would consider this razor sharp. This will probably shave you. I haven't tried it. I guess we can. Yeah, this will actually shave hair. But I'm still giving it a 9 because I'm now a snob. Once you start sharpening knives and you get like ultra slicey knives, it's hard to rate those other knives any better than that. At any rate, let's call it a 9.5 because that's really not fair. This is as sharp as you probably would want most knives. And I'll tell you, my experience is in some ways these perform better and in some ways they don't. So this will probably have a better bite, which means it may do better in rope cutting. When I really do a finely polished edge, we'll see this again with that 𝗚𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 knife when we test that. Will that finely polished, you know, almost mirror finish edge, will it have the bite into the rope? Now, it doesn't mean either one of these is going to hold an edge longer. That's what we're doing testing for. But the bite into that rope, I've noticed, is not as good a lot of times when I give it that finely polished mirror finish versus the kind of rough 400, 600 grit finish that they come from stock. Otherwise, this is a good knife. I certainly can recommend it if it's, you know, something that interests you. The downsides of this knife, just to be fair, is, again, it's very smooth. There's nothing grippy on this knife, whereas so many of the other Spyderco knives, even their carbon fiber, has a lot of grip to it. Like, this isn't going to slip out of your hands. This one is so beautifully polished, which makes it look pretty, but it also makes it a little slicker. I can definitely see with wet hands, this thing is going to slip a little bit, and with no jimping then to hold it, this is more, again, office, daily use, great EDC knife. You could even use this for some food prep type stuff, but you know, wet hands, tactical use, this is probably not your bag. That being said, great knife. Let's get over to the cutting table and start cutting. And as always, we'll start out with our cardboard. I've got 380 inches, basically. And one of the things that I'm looking for here is the blade feels a little thicker. You know, it's not as tall as a typical PM2. So I'm looking to see how does that feel. And I'll tell you, going through this cardboard really is hot knife through butter. Now, if you'll see this cardboard is kind of a mess. I just didn't have a whole lot of cardboard to choose from. This has obviously gotten wet and then dried out. And if y'all have ever cut that, you'll know it's floppy. It wants to tear instead of cut. So it's not a great test medium. But I'll tell you, the knife did great. Handled it, no problem at all. If you're breaking down cardboard with this knife, no issues whatsoever. Now we got to see how the edge does. First pass, pretty good. Second pass, now I'm seeing, okay, there's a little bit of a snag there. You can see a little tear in the paper. How bad is it? Are there more? So I'm just going to keep on cutting. There is actually a method to the madness. I got to identify, are there nicks in the blade? If there are, how bad are they? So it actually took a good hit on that cardboard, knocked it down to an 8. That's a pretty good hit on these. So this is not a graded test here, but just want to see how easy it is to do draw cuts. That's what a lot of us do for a lot of the time with our EDC knives. This one's great. It's got that modified sheep's foot style blade. Easy tip down, no issues. All right, let's move on to the reinforced hose here. I'm looking for it popping through that hose without having to saw it back and forth, and you can see easy, no problem, pops through there pretty good. You know, there's not a big belly on this knife, and so your fingers are down against the table on some of this, so it's hard to even like rocking through these cuts. I'm rocking down to where my fingers are now touching the table. So that adds a little bit of a challenge. It'll add another challenge in the rope as well. But let's see if it did any additional damage to the edge. First pass looks good. Second pass, now I've got a nick. I saw that, and that one's pretty stiff now. That's a good nick in the blade. I can't quite get by it. There's another one. So now I'm looking like I've got at least 2 nicks in the blade here. Yeah, and so I'm just kind of confirming, and now the question is, can I cut past it if I cut fast? Because that'll, you know, change the score a little bit, and I'm not having any luck here. So I think the best I can give this right now is a 6 on the rating scale. Let's put it to the rope, this sisal rope. It's always hard to figure out how to hold this knife to get the good cuts that I want. I'm looking again for rope pop. I want it to pop through that rope. I want to be able to just to push that edge through that piece of rope, and it just kind of pop off the end. And you can see I get 1 or 2 like that. Part of the problem I'm having with this rope is that it tends to fray as I'm cutting it, and so that spreads the rope out over a wider area, so it's harder to get that blade through. But you can see I'm having to saw through the rope, so that tells me either my knife is dull or there's just no good edge to bite into the rope, and that's not uncommon. I did not sharpen this knife, so usually it has a better bite than that. And now on that first pass, it doesn't look like anything's wrong. Same with the second pass. Like, this is now looking better than it was. There's that one nick towards the middle of the blade, but the one towards the belly, where I'd just been cutting the rope, seems to be gone. So this is one of those things. Certainly we run into this from time to time. The score actually has gone up now from a 6 to a 7. So let's see, we're now ergonomics more than anything else, and what kind of bite are we getting into this wood? Am I going to get a good bite into the wood with it? And also, again, really ergonomics. So I've got my thumb out kind of in that thumb spoon on top of that blade. Feels good in the hand. I'll tell you, ergonomically, this knife is really good, and it's getting actually good deep bite into the wood. So I'm going to go back on the handle a little bit so I'm not choked up. I'm going to choke back on it, see if that makes any difference getting power into it. You can see it's digging into that wood pretty good. I put just where my thumb is on the back of the blade, but the rest of the handle, the scales, no problem. The clip, no problem. Ergonomically, all is good. So let's see, you know, did we do any additional damage to the edge? And again, first pass looks good here. Second pass, now I'm seeing a little nick out on the edge of the blade, but I saw that earlier. I can cut past it if I cut fast enough. There's the nick in the middle of the blade again showing up. So now it's just trying to figure out, okay, can I cut past it? Is this like a severe nick in the blade or just a really minor one? When you cut slow, of course, any little minor imperfection will catch up in the paper. So I think when all's said and done, I'm going to have to give this a 6.5. Let's drop this thing up and see if I can get it back to good health. So I have a freshly loaded strop here. On the brown side is a 16 micron diamond emulsion. That's the rough side of the leather. The strop has, you know, kind of the rough side on one side. That's this brown side. And then on the green side is a freshly loaded 6 micron, where it kind of finely hones that blade. This has been a great combination in case you guys are looking for a good strop. That is working great for me. And as you can see, about 20 total passes per side. This is back to every bit as sharp as it was when it started, which if you remember back to the beginning of the video, it really was only about a 9.5 because I'm a little snobby now on what constitutes a 10 out of 10. But it got it back to every bit of where we started. So easy to strop back. That's a definite bonus. All right, let's take a look. We'll run down through the numbers here. Unfortunately, well, first on the far right side, in case you haven't seen these, is the knife of today's test, the Spyderco Kapara Replica. Before that, you'll see the last 11 tests that we ran. So I know this can be hard to see. I'm going to kind of walk through it pretty quickly. We have no idea what the steel is on this thing. I have some guesses. I'll tell you that in a minute. Therefore, I have no idea what the hardness rating is or what knife steel nerds would rate their edge retention score on that type of steel. Did not sharpen this first, so it started at a 9.5 out of 10. I just couldn't quite give it that 10. Did 380 square inches. After that, it dropped to an 8. It's a pretty big hit for most knives that we test. So definitely the cardboard dulled it pretty severely. After the 5 hose cuts, we went all the way down to a 6. Now, I don't know if that was a mix of some of the cardboard damage I just didn't quite pick up when I was testing it, but that's another big drop, and usually the hose doesn't drop it hardly anything, if ever. Then we did our rope cuts. It was terrible on the rope cuts, but then for some reason when I tested the sharpness after that, it actually had gone back up. The nicks weren't as bad. It wasn't stopping the blade through the paper like it was previously, so I give that a 7. We did our wood cutting, which left us at a 6.5 when all is said and done at the end of the test. 20 strokes per side on those strops, really 10 on the brown, 10 on the green. Got us back to our starting 9.5. So let's talk about what this all means in my opinion. I think this is probably like a cheaper 8CR steel at best, maybe, with a not great heat treat. It got dull faster than most knives do. Not terrible. We certainly have seen far worse, especially when you're dealing in the replica knives for $24, and it's carbon fiber scales, which are really well done. Actually, the knife is built really well. So you're going to skimp on something. They're going to skimp on the steel. That's pretty normal. Did really good. The cutting action through cardboard, if you're cutting cardboard boxes with this, you're going to be very happy with this knife. Did terrible on the rope. Just had no pop at all, no ability to really cut through that rope easily. And again, I didn't sharpen it beforehand, and so sometimes that really helps with the rope cutting and all cutting. It has minimal belly. It's like a continuous belly, but it's very minimal. So it's hard to get like much past the tip, flat down onto the table. So even getting access to the full edge of the knife when you're cutting on a table, like we did on the rope and the hose, little bit tricky on that, and that limits us somewhat. But again, it felt sharper after we had our terrible cutting on the rope. The hose was good, had really good bite into the wood. It was cutting deep into there. No hot spots. Very good ergonomics. If you remember, this knife has no jimping at all, and it has really highly polished carbon fiber scales, so it's kind of slick overall, but I didn't find this to be slippery at all. Now, if I had like hot, sweaty hands or wet hands or something, that probably would be a very different story. I think it does have the potential to be slick, but I didn't experience that at all in today's test, at least. So I thought that was worth pointing out. I'm going to say edge retention, just average overall. We've seen better and we've seen worse. It's about middle of the pack. It's not great and nothing to write home about, but I'm going to say this is still a really good EDC knife option, especially for the money. You're getting beautifully polished carbon fiber scales. The action is great. The size is good. You've got a nice big long 3-inch blade. You know, to me, this is the same exact size of knife as you would carry for a PM2. So if you like that and you just want something that looks a little more stylish, maybe a little less tactical, less threatening for using around the office or around other people who might be nervous, this is a fantastic option. And then when all is said and done, it was really easy to strop it all the way back to as sharp as it was when we started. So good action, looks good, feels good in the hand, no hot spots. Easy to carry, easy to strap back. What's not to love about that? So edge retention, I'm giving it a 6 because it really could have done a little better on that. But as far as an EDC, I'm going to say this is an 8 on my overall EDC score, which is separate from the edge retention score. So let me know what you guys think. Have any of y'all gotten one of these? What has your experience been? I know often I hear from a lot of you who say, hey, I got one of those knives and that was my experience, or that wasn't my experience. I had a totally different experience. I'd love to hear either way. As always, if you're not subscribed, love to have you guys subscribe down below. Make sure you throw a thumbs up if you would be so kind on your way out the door. That really helps the channel a bunch, so thanks for doing that. Otherwise, look forward to chatting with you guys in the comments. We'll see you on the next video. Y'all have a great day.